Reham Khan is someone who cannot be suppressed. You can't silence me. Many people have tried to sort of suppress, I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior by birth.
Prime Minister Imran Khan has made some very controversial comments.
Is just an endorsement of what he said earlier. And so, yes, it is a rape apologist comment. I'm very clear about that. A sensible person would say it's unnecessary for him to go into this debate.
My name is Hamza Abdul Salam and you're watching the Pakistan Daily. Today we're going to talk to a renowned human rights activist and author, Mohtarma Reham Khan. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Hamza, for having me on the show.
Reham Khan Saiba, how's everything at your end?
Everything is fine in the sense that people are getting vaccinated in the UK, but our numbers are going up again, so we still have to be careful. It's been a very difficult weekend for us particularly, for Pakistanis in Pakistan and for overseas Pakistanis who follow Pakistani politics, because a very strong democratic voice from Pakistan, we've lost him, and I feel like it's really, the parliament is looking very, very, it's been orphaned, I feel. Usman Khan Kakar, who was a senator for the PKMAP from Balochistan, but he stood for absolutely everything under the sun to do with human rights and for vulnerable communities, for Pashtun rights, for Baloch rights. He was not discriminatory in his human rights activism, and it wasn't for he didn't play to the gallery. He was a very, very honest, true Braveheart of the nation. So I just felt like it felt like a personal loss to us in the office, within the Reham Khan team. A lot of our youngsters who are aspiring politicians or aspiring journalists, I found out that we've been going through stories where they've had a one-on-one interaction with him, and they had absolutely beautiful stories of humility, of grace, and of looking out for people. So I think it is inspirational to have voices like that. But as I said, without him, it's been quite a depressing start to the week.
But do you have any suspicions regarding his death? Because in Parliament, he made a speech and he did narrate some suspicion. So what do you think about that?
You see, Pakistan, because there is a trust deficit, we have a trust deficit, whether it comes to the institutions or people, the powers that be. So even if it is a natural incident, a natural death, or something that occurs naturally, people are bound to be suspicious, especially for voices like Usman Khan Kakar, who have received threats. And of course, his last speech in the parliament was about the fact that he's getting threats to his family. And he points out the fact that if anything happens to him or his family, the blame of that would be squarely placed on the agencies. He was very, very open about it. So I hope, for the sake of Pakistan, that it is a natural death, because it's extremely depressing and demotivating for people to think that any voice will be quashed. So I hope that there will be an inquiry, that all of these sort of things that we're hearing on the social media. It is a very sudden death, and it's not the first sudden death in Pakistan. So we've gone through so many deaths which have raised our suspicions, and they've been from voices that needed to be suppressed. So it sort of builds the suspicion, and I think that those suspicions have to be laid to rest. We are, of course, a nation where Benazir Bhutto Shaheed, her assassination, a clear assassination, was a clear cover-up. We are a nation who lost Liaquat Ali Khan to an assassination, a mysterious assassination, and nobody knows why and who was behind it. And so, of course, in recent times, we've had so many people like Justice Waqar Seth. We've had Maulana Khadim Rizvi. We've had countless deaths, and then of course the fascism that we see in Pakistan. So it is a mystery, but it does make you very curious, and I think that the state needs to step up to make sure that these suspicions are laid to rest, and that because I know him personally, and I know that he was perfectly healthy. The family have now come out and said that this doesn't appear to be a natural death, and a lot of people are criticizing that why did it take the family 4 to 6 days to say this, but people must understand that the circumstances that we live in Pakistan, it's if you lose one person, you are more under threat and you are less likely to come forward because you want to save the rest of your family. So I think that it's very, we live in very unique circumstances, and people do not have the confidence that the state needs to build in the systems and in the institutions.
Yes, you're absolutely right, and it's a very sad event, and our thoughts and prayers are with Usman Kakar's family. And Ms. Khan, Prime Minister Imran Khan has made some very controversial comments speaking to the international media. Uh, in his comments, he's tried to equate sexual violence with women's clothes, and people are calling him a rape apologist. So, how do you view these comments?
Well, first of all, the comment that was made recently is just an endorsement of what he said earlier in a previous interview. And so, yes, it cannot be justified. It is a rape apologist comment. I'm very clear about that. Why he needs to do that, I feel that a sensible person would say it's unnecessary for him to go into this debate. That is not what he should be talking about. He should be condemning rape, and he should stop there. He should promise law and order, better security for women and children and vulnerable communities. He should say that he would be increasing budgetary allocations for women protection cells, that he would be improving policing, he would be bringing in stricter punishments, and he should stop there. That's what his role is. I feel that he does this deliberately. And I think that the fact that people are saying that he's equating religion and modesty, or the word parda, with women in some way responsible for the rapes that they are enduring. It's just not only sad, unforgivable, but I feel that it's deliberate. And you must realize that it's not only Imran who does this. I think that religion and the religion card is used by everyone, and whoever wants to be in politics or wants to have some sort of influence. So they lead double lives, all of them. I don't want to single him out, but I think that people have very liberal lifestyles, as we've seen with the videos that have surfaced in recent weeks. So we have people who are preaching Islam, and they have titles like muftis, and they have been indulging in acts which in no way can be categorized as religious or moral. And so I think that the facade of religion and the facade of parda, or whether you have a religious title, is used for influence, and it's extremely. I mean, it should be condemned. I think that people should come together, and anyone who uses religion is used across the world, or extreme right ideology is used across the world to come into power, and you could be doing it in your local community. You could be doing it on a provincial level. You could be doing it on a regional level, and it's just looking like people across the world are exploiting this extreme right-wing ideology just to hang on to power. And so I feel that Imran is doing the same. He is deliberately misrepresenting Pakistanis. You and I are Pakistanis. We know how Pakistan has moved on. We're looking at political leadership coming from right-wing parties who are supporting women. We know that the voters and supporters like to see women in politics, women in media. We feel women are contributing very actively. And we feel that men do want women to participate. I feel that this is misrepresenting Pakistani men. I think that more than women who he's victim shaming, or in some way placing the blame on them, women should of course be shocked and upset, but Pakistani men should have an issue with this statement, because I don't know how many Pakistani men do you or I know who are just going to pounce on a woman just because she is wearing clothes that are not in any way appropriate in the Prime Minister's eyes. I think that is a gross misrepresentation of Pakistani men. I think wrong to link religion with it. And I think that he does it deliberately. I think that this interview was an opportunity for him to apologize. He just needed to make a clean apology and get out of it. But I think that people in the West don't realize that we have been listening to him ranting about this and how Bollywood and Hollywood are responsible for the rapes in society, and the length of someone's outfit is in some way responsible for criminal sexual violence against women. He doesn't explain how criminal sexual violence is in any way inspired by a 3-year-old or by a boy who is obviously not wearing a miniskirt. So I think that he does it deliberately. I think he seeks to paint a very extreme right wing ideology, a hyper Islamist society, and that is misrepresenting who we are. He does it for his politics. And I think that the world over, I've said it so many times that I'm a huge fan of this new book that came out recently about identity politics. And in that, Francis Fukuyama explains why people like Trump and why things like Brexit happen. It's because everyone across the world, it's not only Imran, it's everyone across the world using identity politics to get their, to get a very healthy vote bank and misleading people. Those are not our issues. And I think that there needs to be an awareness where people need to understand that whether it's religion or whether it's white supremacy or whether it is, violence against, certain members of society because they happen to be in a minority, that is encouraged just so that people can hang on to power. And Imran is doing nothing differently. I think particularly in Pakistan, people have done this before. He's just doing it a little bit more blatantly, but I think everyone does it. And I think that given the right script, everyone would possibly volunteer to become a rape apologist if it helps their vote bank. It's as simple as that.
But Ms. Khan, what impact do you think such a statement by the Prime Minister of Pakistan has on the victims of sexual violence? Do you think they would start blaming themselves, especially people who are kids who don't know what is the appropriate length of dress to wear, or who, if this thing never even came to their mind that what they should wear? How do you think it impacts them?
But you see, that is not his concern, or people who use religion or people who use victim shaming. That is not their concern. If they were not callous in their attitude, if they would care to read, they would understand that sexual violence or rape, particularly, is there's the higher number, say in 33% or so, is by an acquaintance or by a close family member or a boyfriend or a husband. So, it is within the security of a home. And also, I think that for Pakistan particularly, the Prime Minister should be briefed that in the last 6 years, 22,000 rapes have been reported in Pakistan. Only 77 of them have had any kind of punishment given out to them. So on 22,000 rapes reported, I feel, and many would confirm, is underreporting. The Prime Minister should understand our cultural sensitivities, and he should understand that girls who come forward with rape reporting or sexual assaults are more likely to face shaming by the community or by their family. So many suicides are reported where a woman is raped and she cannot bear to live in the community where she has been raped and then faces shaming from the society. Many women will be killed by the family. Many young children are disposed of after being sexually assaulted or raped. And so I think it is callous to the extreme. And I think that women and children and young boys who are listening to us, they must realize that one individual in power or a few people in power defending him does not mean that they start believing that they are at fault or that they have anything to do with someone's sexual violence. Sexual violence is related to previous criminal activities. So I think that to make women feel that if they are in any way responsible for it, or that they've in any way aroused someone is the most uneducated, the most irresponsible statement anyone can make. So I want people to understand that you are not at fault. Anyone who says that really needs to go back to school. And I'm not sure where he's gone to school, because I think a lot of parents will think twice before they send their children to schools like universities like Oxford, because clearly he's not learned a thing.
And Ms. Khan, why do you think the Prime Minister and other government officials are silent on the abuse carried out by religious clerics? And there's video evidence. There's a recent case of Mufti Azizur Rahman, but in those cases we see absolute silence. So why is that, in your opinion?
And this is why I said, because I don't want to single out Imran. I think that what is shocking is not only that there's silence, there should have been condemnation, but it is to protect the right vote bank. Religion has been used across the world. You see, political religion, I feel very strongly that faith has to be personal. Faith should make you a better person. Faith should make you understand that you have to look after animals, or people who are vulnerable, that you have to protect those who are weaker than you across the world, whichever faith you believe in. It should make you a better person. It shouldn't incite you to violence or criminal activity. But people use it to protect their vote banks. And nowhere is it more obvious, and has been done for such a long time, as in Pakistan. I do believe that the religious political identity has always been implanted in Pakistan. It's superimposed. So you see, back in the Afghan war, the first Afghan war in the 80s, we needed the religious labeling. We needed a certain religious community, because it served the purpose of a foreign intervention in Pakistan. So we did that. We encouraged this. We encouraged the seminaries. We actually, when we speak to our parents and grandparents, they tell us that this is not the Pakistan that they actually, the Pakistan that we've inherited wasn't the Pakistan that they lived in the 50s and 60s. So this was superimposed for a reason. And now the fact that there is no condemnation, by the way, not only that the religious clerics or those that have a very strong political voice from religious political parties, for example, leaders who've been in the public eye and got popular support now, Maulana Sahib, for example, should have condemned it. But also, there has been no condemnation by the government or by the Prime Minister. I didn't see him condemning or pointing out the fact that what were these two young boys wearing, or countless young boys wearing, in a single sex madrasa that aroused these lustful desires in those that have been using them for coercive sex. They don't explain that. But also there has been silence from all political parties, all political leaders, and that is a reflection of the fact that no one is willing to take a sensible step of condemning what is clearly wrong, what is not allowed in Islam, and is actually embarrassing for those people who are genuinely religious. I think that it is damaging to the religious community, because obviously these are people who are, pedophiles or sexual criminals, do not represent the whole society. I feel that not only is it completely irresponsible and criminal negligence by those powers and those voices who we look up to, but also I find that we should demand. I think that we don't demand. We should demand an apology from the Prime Minister for the rape apologist comment. We should demand condemnation on a large scale about these incidents. This condemnation should come from those religious communities. This should be clearly said that these people indulging in a sexual activity or coercive sexual activity are not part of us. Their titles, they should be stripped of their titles. I don't think that, at least I find it very insulting. As an observant Muslim, I find it very insulting to say, well, don't call someone a mufti because he's clearly a hypocrite. I find it extremely disturbing, and I think people, the problem with Pakistanis is we will discuss on Twitter Spaces and Clubhouses and on interviews and in press conferences, but we would I think we need to realize that this is very serious. This is damaging the whole community. And when people get away with it, when they don't have that condemnation, I think it just gives a green signal to other people, other perpetrators of violence. And I feel very strongly that it's up to us to demand from our political parties for a comment on that. If they can't do that, if they're not brave enough to say what is right, then I think that they shouldn't really have a ticket to the parliament.
Mhm. Yes, yes, that's very interesting, Ms. Khan. And there's a lot of absurd statements coming from the Prime Minister, and one of which I'd like to mention. In the floor of the Parliament, our Prime Minister said that Osama bin Laden, a world-renowned terrorist, was a martyr. And recently, our Foreign Minister, in an interview with the international media, he couldn't answer this question, and he was shocked that this question was even asked, and he seemed completely unprepared to answer such a question. But calling a terrorist a martyr, that makes Pakistan look like a very different state than what it really is, and it doesn't represent the views of the majority of Pakistanis. So, how do you view this particular statement?
Again, it's an extension to your first question and my first answer about this, that this is deliberate. This is not a slip of the tongue. This is a deliberate sort of, superimposed identity. You want to be, why do you think that Imran has this Taliban Khan labeling? I think that he has always wanted that. And why they're doing it now is because you clearly want no democracy or democratic sort of voice in Afghanistan. You want a certain look for Pakistan, for Afghanistan, and in Pakistan also. This is you see it's an extension of the same thing. They're saying these things because it is a script, and the script is misrepresenting Pakistan. Pakistanis have lost lives to terrorism. Even today, there has been another bomb blast. In fact, it's all starting over again, and I think it is because of our the bomb blast in Lahore, and of course it's the target killings in Karachi now. If you look at Waziristan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we have that re-emergence and reorganization of militancy. It doesn't come as a surprise. If we continue to repeat our mistakes from the past, if we do what we did in the Afghan war, if we do what we did during the war on terror, and mind you, this time I don't think we're getting paid for it also. So it seems madness and ludicrous to me, but this is what they want to do. If they don't want to learn their lesson, I don't think that people, the powers that we have learned their lesson. We want to believe their promises that they want to put their house in order, but I don't see any evidence of that. And certainly statements like this by the foreign, or the lack of an answer by the foreign minister, because it wasn't part of his, it wasn't part of the syllabus he's been given. He's following a line which is a very dangerous line, and that's the problem with representation. These people, whether it's the prime minister or the foreign minister or other parliamentarians from across the board, mind you, the fact that they promote a very extreme right-wing ideology is not because that's what they believe. It's because that is what gets them into power, and that's how they can stick to power. And it's not representative of Pakistan, of Pakistanis, our civilians, and in fact, our armed forces. We have had so many deaths. We have had so many martyrs. I would like him on the floor of the House to declare that there have been so many young children, young students, young men and women who have been martyred. And the fact that someone who's accepted, Osama bin Laden accepted killing people, and you are refusing to acknowledge that. Why are you doing that? Do you think that they have they're not as they have an army of spokespersons? They have 51 people in the cabinet. Is there no one who has the brains to tell them? Of course there is, but this is a deliberate plan, a very deliberate and dangerous plan to take us back to the 80s. And so this is why we say that this is actually much worse than Zia's Pakistan, because there is more fascism now. There's no press freedom. No one is going to be talking about it on mainstream TV. There was resistance at the time. There were sane voices. And I think that a lot of people might feel demotivated. There was satire allowed. There was poetry allowed. There was voices like Ahmed Faraz, we had Faiz Ahmed Faiz, we had, I feel very lost today because I feel that people have lost hope because we've been down this road before and we can see them going there again only for their vested interest, the vested interest of a few people, not the entire populace, not Afghanistan, not Pakistan, not the entire region. And it's to me, it sounds suicidal. I really can't think of a better word.
Yes, that's very interesting. And Ms. Khan, let's talk about the parliament. Recently, we witnessed a lot of chaos in the parliament during the speech by the leader of the opposition. We saw government MNAs using abusive language in front of cameras. We saw them throwing budget documents on each other. We also saw instances of minor physical violence. So, what do you think this government is doing to the parliament, and what impact do such instances have to the institution and the sanctity of the parliament in the long term?
So, Hamza, when you said let's talk about the parliament, I wanted to stop you there and say let's not talk about the parliament. What parliament? I mean, like I said, they were never representative of us. The Pakistani parliament does not represent the 220 million people who have evolved, who do not want death, who do not want poverty, who want to be able to compete with a world that's changing. The world is not focusing on the things that our parliamentarians are. And I think that it would be unfair of you and I to blame only the parliamentarians from from the treasury benches. I think that everyone should have been. I was very embarrassed to see what happened in the parliament. They don't represent Pakistani values. They don't actually represent Islamic values. They claim the religion card and the vote bank, but they don't actually know how to behave with religious scriptures. For example, the budget copy, the front page of that, I think nobody bothered to open it, or if they did, they obviously do not have any respect or reference. You would not throw something that had perhaps another religion's words on it. You would perhaps not throw any book by any author, but the fact that you're there in the Islamic Republic of Pakistan using the religion card, using Islamic values for victim shaming, and you don't know that the front page of the budget copy has Quranic verses on it. So this is what they are. What happened in the parliament is indicative of what's happened to Pakistani politics. And I think that I just looked at that and I thought, they don't represent me. It's just a display of where they want to take us. And also I feel that it's a deliberate method of not talking about the issues that we want them to talk about, not talking about the budget, not talking about the fact that the defense budget has again been increased. Pointless. I don't understand why the education budget wasn't discussed, or the fact that it hasn't been increased. Just a couple of days before the budget and all of this, these embarrassing scenes from the parliament, we saw 21 bills just steamrolled in the parliament. Before that, the CPIC Authority Act. I mean, what parliament are you talking about? These are not parliamentarians. This is not only a puppet show when it comes to the incumbent government, but I think that it is. I'm trying to choose my words very very carefully here, but I think that it's just leading us or misleading us, distracting us, diverting the attention of the public towards these scenes so that we don't really talk about the real issues. I would like the parliamentarians to sit down and talk about the fact that what kind of access will be given to the US as they withdraw the troops from Afghanistan. I don't see that. I don't see that seriousness. People who can't open the budget copies, do you expect them to even spend a couple of minutes thinking about what's going to happen? That's not their priority. I want people to talk about and discuss the CPEC Authority Act, which they didn't. They when I speak to a few people, I'm told that they were ambushed. I'm sorry, but you're paid to discuss issues. You're paid not to misbehave. There was hooliganism. That's not what they're paid for. And so I would suggest a cull. I would suggest, a complete. I really want to see the face of the parliament changed. because I feel very strongly that A, they're not serious about what they're paid to do, and B, that they are, as you said, not representing the aspirations of Pakistani people.
Mhm. And Ms. Khan, you've witnessed a lot of governments. You've reported on Pakistani politics for a very long time. So, your insight, what do you think? Will this government complete its tenure?
You see, this government, the way it's been brought in, it hasn't been brought in on a heavy mandate or popular support. So I would say that the last 3 years has not been about governance, has not been about policy, has not been about providing relief to the people. It hasn't been about moving forward. It's been about how do we stick to power. And so all you've seen is really people, electables being pushed into the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf just to make a weak coalition, and then we've seen constant sort of sabotage movements and blackmail tactics across the board. So I think that even today the focus is there, and if I do also feel that this U.S. military support and vis-a-vis the IMF relaxation, I think the factors. And if Imran navigates his way to get a better deal and some sort of support, then he can very easily complete the next 2 years. I also feel that the opposition, particularly the PMLN leadership in London, wants Imran to continue. So they have a willing partner in the opposition. I also there's news today about a meeting with the PMLQ leadership and the Pakistan People's Party at Bilawal House, and so I see that not as something to damage Imran's government. I see that as more of a way of perhaps even a tacit approval by Imran to break the PMLN or weaken the PMLN in Punjab, and so that's what's happening. So I don't think that we should hold our breath in terms of seeing the PTI government going. Imran could be used as a scapegoat. I do sometimes feel that he's been built up as a hero, and now this sort of defaming and maligning, and he's perhaps not conscious of it. But we've seen this happen before, and there's so many examples across the world where the media's darling is suddenly then completely demonized, and I see that happening. I see that very slowly coming into to shape, and I think that he might be removed as a scapegoat. But personally, I don't see why he should be removed. He's not put a foot wrong. He is what I said pre 2018 elections, that he is the ideal puppet. He still is the ideal puppet. Yes, of course, many others would want to be a puppet also, but perhaps there is a trust deficit when it comes to them, and why fix it if it ain't broke? And so I think Imran is doing everything right. So if I was responsible for pulling the puppet strings, I wouldn't be removing him for the next 2 years. I might be even planning to keep him for another 5 years.
Yes, that's very interesting. So, Ms. Khan, let's talk about Mohtarma Reham Khan. You have millions of followers all across social media. You're very active on Twitter. And one thing some of us have noticed is that you retweet small accounts, you engage with regular people, you go into Twitter spaces, you talk in Clubhouse, and you address different issues. So, where did you get that idea from, and how has it been connecting with regular Pakistanis so frequently?
I get a lot of objections from close friends and from those people in the office who have this view. It's a very Pakistani mindset to not entertain those who might be in their head beneath. I think I'm expected to behave like a diva or expected to behave like a celebrity. But the fact is that I've always, I mean, even when I started my work in Pakistan, the reason I fell in love with Pakistan was not because of the politicians I was interviewing, because I found them very boring. I found them to be giving rehearsed scripted answers, and you couldn't really learn anything from those very guarded rehearsed answers. And what I love about Pakistan are the people, are the real people, and I'm invested in them. I want to stay connected to them, and I am very much a grassroots sort of person. So for me, it's very important for me to hear straight from the horse's mouth, if you may, that I want to know what the issues are, and I want to contribute because I have millions of followers. I feel that I have a platform where I can perhaps facilitate someone's, maybe just a football kit, for example. I want to do that, whatever little I can do. So I don't really see myself. I don't agree with these objections because I like connecting with real people. I find that they add to my information. I feel that they motivate me, and so for me, what people think is quite random, and perhaps I shouldn't behave like that. I Everything about things that are done in a stereotypical way, I have been defiant of that. So I don't want um, staged interviews or planted interviews. I even want to engage with trolls because I generally feel sorry for these kids who are misguided, and I feel like people haven't invested in them. That's who I am. So it's through COVID, I felt that we should in fact connect to more people. So it started with Insta lives, and I met a couple of really nice people. And then I've remained in contact with them, and I feel that there's not enough investment in our youth, particularly young women. And I see this as sort of career guidance or mentoring, and I really want to take any risk. If people think that I shouldn't be doing that, that's their mindset. I don't agree with it. I feel that I have a duty to give whatever time I can if somebody can learn. So even if 10 people disagree with me, or if 10 people think that I might be saying the wrong thing, if I can invest in one person, if I've changed or inspired them to read, to think, to even ask me questions, I think that's valuable to me. So I really enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I don't get a lot of time for it, but I really do enjoy just jumping into random Twitter spaces. Random in the sense that I don't know these people, and to be honest, I've perhaps only had one nasty experience, and that was because it wasn't regular people. Um, it was actually an organized sort of political forum, and I accidentally went in there. But other than that, real people never disappoint me. That's what inspires me to do a bit more. It's very motivating for me.
That's very interesting, and I hope more public figures like you engage with the masses and truly get to know what's going on in their minds and in their hearts. So, Ms. Khan, you're running Reham Khan Foundation. You're active on social media. You're doing a lot of political activism. So, a lot of people are wondering what's next for Mohtarma Reham Khan.
I know what all everyone wants to know is whether I'll be joining a political party, and the fact is that I think when I say things, people don't believe me because um, when you're different, when the people have been lied to, when people have been deceived, they're not likely to believe one other person who comes in, because you see, people see me as everyone else. So I would like to come into active politics, but when I say that I'm not, I find it demotivating, demoralizing, like everyone else, when I see these parliamentarians or political parties behaving in a certain way or not taking a stand where they should. I just feel discouraged. And I mean, for example, the parliament the other day during the budget, can you see me stood there behaving like that? I don't see myself. I don't fit in. And it's sad that the parliament looks like that. I think many Pakistanis would not fit in. I think many women would not want to be in that mix of ugliness and foul language. And I'm sorry, but I heard some um, um, a political a parliamentarian saying that this is Punjabi culture. But I know, I follow your Punjabi vlogs, and I'm sorry, but that's not Punjabi culture. I don't think that abuse, hooliganism is Punjabi culture, or any culture for that matter. So I don't see myself fitting in there. I would want to be in a party where there's democracy. I would be in a party where I could challenge the leadership and say, well, I think you should condemn this. I would want to be in a party where there are more people genuine people given representation. I see my role more as it is active politics and political activism, where I want to see genuine people in parliament. For me, it's not that important for me personally to sit in parliament. One lone voice in the National Assembly or the Senate or any parliament anywhere is not good enough. I feel that I don't agree with this concept of one person at the top. I think that you need a broad base, and so this is my target before I go. I want more women, more genuine women who represent their constituencies in parliament, and I want more young men who are not wannabe politicians, who are not in parliament to throw things at people and swear and abuse and use misogynistic language. I want to see serious parliamentarians across the board, across parliaments, across the world, in parliaments everywhere. I want committed people who will represent their constituents, who will read before they go in, who will understand and then discuss legislation in the parliament. And I think that's what I'm slowly doing. I think a lot of people, 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I didn't really have this kind of following. You said, why do I retweet unknown accounts? I retweet content that I think is factual, content that I think is helpful, content that I think is not agenda driven. So I find that unknown accounts are more honest. I feel that there is more genuine content in that. And that's why we've, I think, campaigning really well on social media until we can. I think we should continue to do that. There are some plans, of course, to have a clampdown, but we'll find a way. I believe in fighting back, and I think online and social media is contributing to the cause. For example, these videos, whether it be of sexual coercion or whether it be sort of condemnation on rape apology, or for example the fact that we're discussing terrorism and militancy and the US Pakistan Afghan relationship. I think that they're not discussing it in parliament. They're not allowed to discuss it on mainstream talk shows. And you asked why the foreign minister and the prime minister, and why the foreign minister did not have an answer. It's because they're so used to their journalists. I think they're not prepared for genuine journalism. When someone really asks a difficult question, they're not prepared for that. That's out of their script. So I think that for me, it's very important to do this activism, to continue to connect. And I think that I feel like we are slowly winning the game.
That's interesting. So in the end, Ms. Khan, there's been a big and sustained vilification campaign against you. And a lot of people from PTI have tried to paint you in a negative light. But now you're engaging with the audience and you're active on Twitter. So what would you like to say to them? Like, who is Reham Khan? That is the last question.
I think Reham Khan is someone who cannot be suppressed. You can't silence me. You can't bully me. If you bully me, then you are going to see a lot more engagement, a lot more comment by me. I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior by birth, and so many people have tried to sort of suppress me. I have a very independent spirit, and I think that when I sense that someone wants to silence me, or someone wants to suppress my voice, I fight back stronger. I feel that that I that I do have a mission. I think that I will not be bullied, and I do that not only for myself. I mean, the vilification that I faced, or my daughters faced, and my family faced, now it's across the board. And this is why I stood up at the time as well. I said, 6 years ago, when post divorce, I said very clearly on TV that this is happening to me and my girls, but it will come to you. It will happen to you. And now we see the same journalists, the same women being attacked. So why I wanted to stop that was because I wanted it in the bud. And as far as the vilification that they've done, this is why I love Pakistani people, because the demonization, I mean, everything under the sun has been said about me. A, it hasn't affected people's love and respect for me. And B, people don't care. People really don't care. They said so many things about me, which were to paint me as someone who's not who doesn't follow conservative social norms in Pakistan or religious norms. But people don't care. People are not that blind. There might be a few paid social media accounts. In fact, we have done an extremely impressive job of finishing off, suspending many an account with thousands and thousands of followers. So I'm very proud of that as well. And Twitter has been very, very good in terms of that. Facebook I hear not as good, but Instagram and Twitter have been very good. So they respond very effectively and promptly. So I think just give up, because I'm not going to give up. That's the message.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mohtarma Reham Khan, for speaking to the Pakistan Daily today.
Thank you, Hamza. Thank you so much.